Mountain Smith here, reading Exodus chapter 1 for the very first time. I have never done it, so please join me. This is going to be my first time reading it, and we will see what happens. I've been told Exodus is pretty wild with a lot of the stories, so we will find out. Again, I've never read anything, so join me. I'm actually reading the New Living Translation, and let's get into it. Find out what is going on. The Israelites in Egypt. Okay, so the Israelites in Egypt. This backs up, I'm guessing, to the death of Joseph, who, if you have not read the Bible or you don't know anything, I'm right there with you. So let me just back up there real quick. Joseph essentially became like a ruler of Egypt, and him and a number of his family were living in Egypt, and then Joseph died. And then he told his family that when it was time that God was to, I guess, come get them, that they have to take his bones back with them. Now, the Egyptians, though, embalmed Joseph's body, though. So that, to me, seems like, I guess, a big no-no. You don't take, somebody was a ruler of Egypt, and you don't take their bones away and take them to somewhere else. So I don't know what that's going to lead to, but that's just kind of the way I kind of saw it. All right, so Exodus 1, the Israelites in Egypt. These are the names of the sons of Israel, that is, Jacob, who moved to Egypt with their father, each with his family. Oh gosh, we have a whole bunch of names here. I am probably going to mess up a lot of the names, so bear with me. Or maybe not. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, that's a nice one, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. In all, Jacob had 70 descendants in Egypt, including Joseph, who was already there. Wow, 70, that's right, including Joseph. That was Jacob's 70 descendants, that's right, okay. So, now these are the names of the sons of Israel. That's who all they were. In time, Joseph and all of his brothers died, ending that entire generation. Oh. But their descendants, the Israelites, had many children and grandchildren. In fact, they multiplied so greatly that they became extremely powerful and filled the land. Oh, okay, so the Israelites then, this is interesting to know. So what this is telling me here is that the Israelites essentially began in Egypt. Is that how we're supposed to understand this? Because it says in time, Joseph and all his brothers died, ending that entire generation. But their descendants, the Israelites, had many children and grandchildren. But mind you, they are in Egypt, and they would be under the Pharaoh. But they multiplied so that they became extremely powerful and filled the land. So we've got a tremendous amount of Israelites that have essentially become powerful in Egypt. It's good to know. Eventually, a new king came to power in Egypt who knew nothing about Joseph or what he had done. Over time. I wonder how much time this actually has gone by. That's a good one. He said to his people, "Look, the people of Israel now outnumber us and are stronger than we are. We must make a plan to keep them from growing even more. If we don't, and if war breaks out, they will join our enemies and fight against us. Then they will escape from our country." Here we go again. It's like every time a ruler, and mind you, this is still going on nowadays, right? When we are in, whatever country is possibly going on everywhere, every time another, I don't know how we want to say here, another race, another culture, another society starts growing within that country, somebody in power is like, whoa, we got to stop this. This is not going to happen. We need to hold all of this back, and otherwise we're going to be going to war. And we don't want to go to war. We want to keep exactly what we have here. So this is like what continues to go on. So that's exactly what's being read right here. You can look around in the world right now, and that's what's happening. You have Europe, who has an influx of migrants and immigrants, and you've got a number of, actually Germany and France and the UK, and we go up into Sweden, Ireland. They are all saying that, hey, you know what, we want to keep exactly where we are. America is in a totally different story. Because it's supposed to be the land of the free, yet it's governed by all rules and laws, so nothing's truly ever free. But everyone's coming in, and then there's a group of people that also want to keep to the values of what America truly is. Canada has a massive influx of people. The Latin American countries, as well as the Asian countries, have a influx of different people. And some of those countries they're pretty strict. They're like, nope, you do one little thing and you're out. So it really, this is exactly what they're going. We must make a plan to keep them from growing even more. If we don't, and if war breaks out, they will join our enemies and fight against us. Then they will escape from the country. It's interesting, though, because that's the part. Then they will escape from the country. So does this king of Egypt, he doesn't want these Israelites to leave the country? Because why not let them leave the country? Or are they all slaves? But if these Israelites became powerful and filled the land, are they, it just seems like if they became powerful, then why not let them go? If this king is thinking like, hey, guess what? There's some war going on. We're going to create a war. Let's just get them out. That'd be the smarter idea. Instead of saying, hey, then they will escape our country. What do I know, right? So the Egyptians made the Israelites their slaves. All right. I think I just answered maybe that question right there, right? So I'm like thinking they're not slaves, so they've got an opportunity. Nope. So the Egyptians made the Israelites their slaves. That was quick. They appointed brutal slave drivers over them, hoping to wear them down with crushing labor. They forced them to build the cities of Pithom and Ramesses as supply centers for the king. But the more the Egyptians oppressed them, the more the Israelites multiplied and spread, and the more alarmed the Egyptians became. So the Egyptians worked the people of Israel without mercy. They made their lives bitter, forcing them to mix mortar and make bricks and do all the work in the fields. They were ruthless in all their demands. That is kind of interesting to think about, I guess, because, we watch all these movies, we see documentaries, we see TV shows, we see, actually the Egyptian slave drivers, we've kind of seen them in, films and things like that. The way that is portrayed is actually almost exactly the way this is written. They have forced them to make bricks and mortar and build. Who knows how they built the pyramids? Maybe this is how they did it. Building cities. Here, was it called Pithom? I wonder how you say that. And Ramesses, supply centers for the king. And then they oppressed them. Very interesting. Then Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, gave this order to the Hebrew midwives. I don't know how to say this. Shifra and Puah. When you help the Hebrew women as they give birth, watch as they deliver. If the baby is a boy, kill him. If it is a girl, let her live. Oh, wow. Okay. But because the midwives feared God, they refused to obey the king's orders. They allowed the boys to live too. Oh, man, could you imagine that? You're the midwives, and you help these Hebrew women. It is your culture. You are being imprisoned by these Egyptian people and the king. And now he is saying, guess what? If it's a boy, kill it. Just murder that baby. If it's a girl, let it live, because obviously they can multiply more. And then they can probably have sex and do whatever they want to and rape the women and, keep them multiplying. But the fact is, though, if there was a baby boy, to kill them. And that's good on those midwives, but because they feared God, that's the way it says. But because the midwives feared God, they refused to do that. That's pretty powerful. You know that if you go against the king's orders and do not do what he's saying, the likelihood is those Egyptian slave drivers and the king and his officers and stuff will kill you. But you fear God more so. That's very powerful to what you're thinking. So the king of Egypt called for the midwives. Why have you done this? He demanded. Why have you allowed the boys to live? The Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, the midwives replied. They are more vigorous and have their babies so quickly that we cannot get there in time. That's fantastic. What a great answer. you know what? Everyone is just having so much sex and there are just babies all over the place that we don't even know what's happening. Could you imagine that? The king's like, wait a minute. You're telling me that you can't figure out that all these Hebrew women are, as he said, they are more vigorous and have their babies so quickly. You can't tell me that you see all these, pregnant women and you can't find out really quickly? Nope, not at all. So God was good to the midwives, and the Israelites continued to multiply, growing more and more powerful. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. Okay. Then Pharaoh gave this order to all his people: throw every newborn Hebrew boy into the Nile River, but you may let the girls live. Oh, wow. Okay. That is the end of Exodus chapter 1. That is quite the order there by the Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh gave this order to all his people: throw every newborn Hebrew boy into the Nile River, but you may let the girls live. Wow. Why would okay, so here's a really good question though. I understand that the Pharaoh, looking at it from his side of things, I understand that the Pharaoh does not want the Israelites to multiply so quickly because they are growing in numbers and he fears a war and now they want to keep them as slaves. But at the same time, don't you want more slaves so that way you can build more? I mean, obviously he wants to stay rich, so that would be the idea. Instead, he's going to take all the boys and kill them, put them in the Nile River. Kings and queens and people have done a lot of erratic things in the world, and that is exactly one of those things. It feels like maybe that king was just acting on emotions and was not thinking things through, but that's where my mind goes. Why kill the boys when you have really good workers? If you're already enslaving people, these other Israelites are going to get old. You know what? I'm going to leave it there.